Alright, hello and welcome to part 2 of module 4 of the first series of the mindset modules, and in this part we'll be going through the remainder areas in our lives where we'll track back each one to the one root cause of you're not good enough. So without further ado, let's crack on. Have you ever seen a magic show where the magician does a trick and then goes ta-da at the end and everybody goes, oh my god, what the fuck, and put their hands to their face and wonders how it was done? And there's some people that go, do that again, because they want to find out exactly how the trick was done. So they look at the magician's hands or the objects intently, trying to work it out. The thing is, the trick was done ages ago. We're just watching the performance of the magician. The same goes for the issues in our relationships. It's not the annoying habits that our partners have or the arguments that we get into that's the problem. The issues lie deeper than that. The clues are in our upbringing, where we learned how to connect with other humans in the first place, particularly when it came to emotions like love and connection. Now, there's something called attachment theory that works on the basis of whoever you are is the basis of who you attract, and therefore the relationships that you form and maintain. In basic terms, attachment theory is all about how we learn to attach to other humans from a very young age. So the first clue here is that the issues in your relationships now have their roots further back in time, before you even met the other person. Now, strictly speaking, there's 4 attachment styles. You got secure attachment, which is the one we all want to get to, where we're independent enough to look after ourselves whilst being comfortable forming relationships with others in a non-needy way. Then you've got anxious attachment, which is where we tend to be quite needy, calling our partner up a lot, messaging them, asking how they are, because we want reassurance about ourselves and the relationship as well. Then you've got avoidant attachment, which is where we want more space and feel smothered if we're bombarded with messages. And then we have anxious avoidant attachment, which is a mix of the two, and that's that kind of fucked up place where you're partly needy but also don't want someone to get too close to us. Now, having gone through all 4 styles, you might ask yourself, well, which one am I? Well, the truth is, you're actually flowing through these needs and styles at various points in your life. Now, if you find yourself in a style that you're not happy with, the good news is that you can change this for the better with some work on yourself. Now, I myself did like an online assessment to check out how my styles are at the moment, and there's some relationships in the secure zone and there's some that are in the anxious zone, which is okay. Now I've got clues as to which style I'm currently exhibiting and how I can work on it, and therefore how I can work my way towards the secure attachment style across all my relationships. But the fallacy that I previously fell for a lot was that I felt I had to keep proving my self-worth to other people so that I could get their validation. Why? Because I didn't feel good enough about myself, and therefore I felt I needed other people to validate and accept me, when really my answers lie internally within us and not with other people. Money. So important that ABBA named one of their songs 3 times after it. Now, when it comes to money, it's a wide-reaching topic. We worry about not having enough money, comparing our salaries to people we know, spending money in the first place, i.e. frugality, or just having no income. Now, when it comes to frugality, it's a bit of an interesting one, because we've got the perception that we don't want to waste money, because one of our programming experiences, like squeezing the life out of everything, like clothes or appliances or furniture, gave us a message that spending frivolously is not acceptable, and hence we don't feel good enough if we do. I'm not blaming anybody here. It's nobody's fault. Our folks, for example, were only doing what they were doing in terms of what they were taught by their folks, as they tended to be a generation that just accepted things and got on with it. So money or financial anxiety also comes from just not even understanding financial terms, because it just makes us feel less informed than others. We also worry about the future, our children, our parents, and therefore stem spending on ourselves for a future point. Again, both points coming to the fact that we don't feel good enough. And in fact, when you look at it, when you have like a self-audit or something, you'll find often than not, you have the money, you just might not want to spend it on certain things, because you preclude the future too much instead of being in the present, which is the only state we can have a semblance of controlling. Now, if we dig further, what do all these worries about money manifest as? Anxiety. We previously said that anxiety is a negative emotion, i.e. if you've got an anxiety about no income and someone just said to you, I'll just go on benefits or welfare, or take a low paid job. We tend not to like that because in our heads that makes us look beneath them to us. So we don't do it because of how it may look to others. Again, the underlying message is, I don't earn enough as them, therefore I'm not good enough. So what we can do instead with practice and compassion is accept the feeling of anxiety, which is okay to feel, like all emotions. And that could be things like just simply writing down how you're feeling. So if you say, I am anxious, that's okay. And it gives you a chance to write further, to process the emotion further. And once you do this, the steps to then bettering yourself become much more palatable and appealing to you. So whether that's reading the financial press, tackling over shopping habits by utilising money saving experts, or getting some financial advice, or according to Pink Floyd, get a good job with more pay, you're okay. How many times have you been to the doctor, said what's wrong with you, and they said, take this pill and come back to me in 2 weeks? And a lot of the time that seems to work. But what if the symptoms came back? And for those on long course of medication, why does it seem like the medicine's not really doing anything for them? And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying doctors don't know what they're doing or that we should get rid of them. They are amongst the most hardworking people we'll encounter in our lives and play an integral role, as do nurses and a lot of people in the medical profession do. But it doesn't mean there aren't alternatives though. Like I know a friend of mine who went to India a few years ago to cure a long-standing shoulder problem, or to try to. For years here, she got told that even after rounds of physio or medicine, that they'll have to operate on her to see what the problem was. But going to this institute, she worked on things like her diet, exercise and a bit of yoga. And from spending about 2 weeks there, not only did the shoulder problem resolve itself, I think she went like 15 years ago or something, the problem's not come back since. There's also clues when it comes to drug trials, because you've got a control group and a placebo group. And often the results focus on what happened to the control group. Say 70 out of 100 people got better from taking the drug, you say the drug's got a 70% success rate. But what about the placebo group? These are people that took something they thought was medicine but wasn't, yet still got better. The clues there in both analogies tie back to our work, which says bring things back to yourself and treat the root rather than the symptom, and then the symptoms take care of themselves. There's another thing to consider here, and that is when we store unprocessed emotions and trauma in our bodies. Like, have you ever had like a random ache or rash and gone, I wonder where that's come from? It could be a sign of not having processed an emotion because the chemical reaction had nowhere to go without being processed, so your body just sticks it somewhere. Now, tying it back to earlier videos, we don't process emotions in full because we're taught that to show them would be unacceptable, and if we do show them, then we're not good enough. So we repress them to avoid that feeling. At the moment, we also treat health problems as that, a problem, an issue, or an illness. When if instead we treated it as a warning system, it would bring in that point about taking responsibility for your own health and seeing that there's an underlying issue that we need to take a look at. But we're not taught to think like that at the moment. At the moment, we encounter an issue and it's like, what's the nearest drug or medicine I can take to just make me feel better again? But if we take responsibility for our own health and look into the issues that lie deeper within, then we break the cycle of just treating the symptom. I'm guessing if you clicked on this clip about weight issues, that you've tried things already to deal with the situation. Things like exercising more, changing your diet, cutting down your intake, or in some cases eating more to gain weight and gain muscle. Well, ultimately, you've not really got anywhere with it, or if you have, it was a short-term gain before your old ways made a comeback. Now, at the same time, these big names in the weight loss field that claim to try and help you with things like losing weight thrive on this short-term mindset. Indeed, my coach told me a story about speaking to the boss of Weight Watchers, said that they indeed count on people to lose a bit of weight and then gain it again, and then come back to them to lose the weight again. Because according to him, it wouldn't be a good business if they didn't have the repeat business. Now, the thing is, with most things in our lives, the issue runs deeper than the symptoms. So if we look beyond going to the gym more, eating less, then we come to the root cause of we don't feel good enough about ourselves. Even though these activities on the face of it are fairly simple, but not easy. Now, particularly when we consider our emotions and trace back to our upbringing, specifically related to food, we hear of terms like comfort eating. And the clue is in the name. We eat because we're trying to love and please ourselves because we're not getting it from other areas in our lives. And invariably we comfort eat these foods that are nutritionally not great for us, and we end up feeling worse afterwards. So it wasn't really a comfort in the first place. But then we proceed to have a go at ourselves, and we worsen the labels, like we saying we're pigging out, for example. And we perpetuate this loop whenever we feel down about ourselves. And there's other language cues that we would have picked up as well. So as a child, we might have heard things like finish everything on your plate, or you can't leave the table until you've finished your plate, or take more, you've not got enough on your plate. So beyond someone trying to control your intake, what's the underlying message we're getting? If you do as I say or suggest, you're rewarded and accepted, and if you don't, that's unacceptable, and there might even be something wrong with you, i.e. we're not good enough. Now, as an extension to this, there are some apps like Noom nowadays that focus on the mindset aspect regarding the topic of releasing weight as opposed to reducing calorific intake. So the app's philosophy is, once you determine the things you're ready to work on, your mindset will help you form new neural connections over time to change your habits. So when you look at the psychology behind why you might overeat, for example, or continue to make not great food choices, or just can't really stick to any diet, you become more self-aware and raise your self-worth, which alters your relationship with food and weight release for the better. So lastly, we come to career change. Richard Ashcroft, so the lead singer of The Verve, for those of you who don't know, preceded a performance of their seminal song Bittersweet Symphony with these words.
A Monday morning may be a struggle for a lot of you in a job that you despise, working for a boss that you despise, a slave to money, then we die.
Do they resonate with you? What do you think? That the thing you do day in, day out, that you spend more time with your colleagues over than your family, is something you really only do because you're a slave to money? Well, you might be asking yourself, why do we hate our jobs? And why do we even do them in the first place if we don't like them? Well, the former comes from suppressing the emotions and feelings we felt for our upbringing that brought us pure joy and what we really wanted to do. So often we look to achieve things to please and prove ourselves, both to ourselves and to other people. Why? Because our self-worth is held externally. So at the crux of it, we feel unfulfilled in our careers because we don't actually want to be doing that job. We want to do what we imagined ourselves being, but we do it to please others, to feel accepted, and to feel good enough. Now, the second bit, where we stay in jobs that we hate, is driven by both that fear of change that comes from going into a new career or job, as well as that resignation that comes from feeling you have to stay in the role because either that's all you know or you've got people to provide for. There's also something else to consider. The situation itself is currently meeting some or all of your core human needs. You just don't realize it. So staying in a job, for example, gives you certainty and control, which is a core human need of ours, i.e. you know that you have a job, you know where you're going to go, you know what to do. So think of it like this. Tomorrow, if you suddenly lost your job for whatever reason, what would you feel? Panic? Worried? Stressed? You might do, and that's completely okay. Whatever you feel is fine. What happened to me was, the first thing I felt was relief. You know, when I walked out the doors of my office, I out loud said, thank fuck for that. Why? Because my subconscious suddenly saw the possibilities that were there for me, that they were trying to self-protect me from by staying in my job. And this is why we underpin the work we do together with me with what do you want? Because this can involve a complete career change, like for me, when I decided to call a stop to my investment banking days and become the mindset transformer, or just even small things like defining and setting your own boundaries, being kinder to yourself, and realizing not everything is your own responsibility. Either way, we want to build up our self-worth to a point where we feel good enough to take our next step. So there we have it. That's the first series of the mindset modules done. And just to recap, it was us going through mapping out exactly where we are at the moment. So that involved looking at things like defining our emotions and how we currently process them, why goal-based thinking and just chasing goals doesn't really work, our definitions of trauma and redefining them as programming experiences, all stemming from the pattern of having experienced a natural emotion or behaviour in our lives, which we've been taught to repress because it's not acceptable to show, and if we do show it, it means we're not good enough. We then went through pretty much every area in life and traced it back to that one root cause of you're not good enough. Now, where we go from here is to understand how we're running things at the moment and where do we want to get to. So that's going to involve the character-based process called construct, deconstruct, reconstruct, and how we essentially can forge our own path to our inner peace, even if we change our mind about what exactly that is along the way. So cheers for watching this first series, and I'll catch you in the next one.